looks okay.
All right. Yep, got it. I can't get it.
It's upside down. It's got to be something better to show up there than me. Well, I thank the music department of our church. So many of those songs we sang this morning were about our perception of other people, and that's sort of a theme of what I'm going to discuss today, which is finding common ground. So, good morning. My name is Stuart Church. I'm a member of this congregation. Our Reverend Wendy Jones is on vacation, and I'm standing in for her this week. When I was preparing for this topic, common ground, many digressions came to my mind, but I'll try to stay focused and also not become too political. So I'd like to begin where the poem that I read left off. You begin to die if you do not wear different colors and speak to those you do not know. You never know who you might meet. They could be very interesting. It reminds me of a bumper sticker I've seen that says, "Be curious, not judgmental." It seems to me this kind of open-minded attitude is the key to finding common ground between people. Finding common ground involves reaching a compromise with another person or group of people who have different ideas and values than you do. So I had to ask myself, wouldn't it be easier if we just all thought the same? Is it a good thing that we have different points of view? And I think that, yes, it is a good thing that we have different points of view. For example, if I'm part of a committee, and I was a teacher, so I was a part of a lot of committees, if I'm part of a committee that's trying to figure out how to allocate a budget, I might enter the meeting with my own priorities and feel I need to convince the rest of the group to see things my way. But if I can put my ego aside and be open to the very real possibility that I'm not always right, then I can learn from the other people and benefit from their own experience. If we can respectfully share our thoughts, then the different points of view we bring to the discussion will give us more options, and we can select the best ideas from a larger pool of proposals. Respectful negotiations like this can yield the best results. So finding common ground involves sharing ideas while working toward a common goal. It involves some give and take and listening to different viewpoints. For example, we might all agree that we like it when we flip a switch at home and the lights come on. That's probably, everybody would say, yeah, But one person might say we need to develop renewable energy, and the other person might believe that fracking for more oil is the solution. How do you find common ground between these two passionately held opinions? It will take good leadership and cooperation and possibly some sacrifice. For example, if I was making $200,000 a year in the oil business instead of $60,000 a year as a teacher, you might have a tough time convincing me to jeopardize my job so we can build windmills. There's always another side to every discussion. In my talk this morning, I'll begin with a summary of the human family. Then I'll get a little cynical. Sorry. And finally, I will try to share a message of hope. The human family. After all, this is who we need to find common ground with. Why is it sometimes difficult to get along? Why have people been hurting each other since there were people? I don't understand why there's so much conflict in the world. If you believe what the Bible tells us, then we are all distant cousins, descendants of Adam and Eve. Later in Genesis, we're told we're all descendants of Noah's family. So we all have common ancestors. We are all part of the same family of humans. If you are of a more scientific frame of mind, many scientists point to a bottleneck in the human species when we almost became extinct. About 930,000 years ago, the human population was reduced to approximately 1,280 breeding individuals. I don't know how they come up with such an accurate number, but that's the point. We almost became extinct. We were just left with a little small crowd, which is about the size of the crowd at a high school stadium during a football game. So from that small group, the entire earth is now peopled. We are all descendants from that fairly small tribe. If we're all part of the same family, why can it be so difficult to cooperate? Why is there so much suffering? It seems sensible that we would want to take care of our extended family and continue the species. But how far does family loyalty extend? For many living organisms, the primary purpose of being alive is to pass along our genetic material. Trees crowd each other out, vying for more sunlight. Male lions kill cubs that have been sired by competing males. Many of we humans dedicate our lives to raising families. Almost everything we do is to ensure our children reach maturity and pass along our genetic material. But our genetic material gets watered down from that bottleneck almost 1 million years ago. My own children carry half of my DNA. I like to think I would do just about anything to ensure their survival and the survival of their children. But what about my niece and nephews? That's a little farther away in the family tree. My sister's children are very dear to me, and I would probably do whatever I could to help them survive. But what about my neighbor's children? Or a family stranded at the US border, or a group of people living in a tent in Gaza? I care about these people too, but I'm not prepared to make the same sacrifices to help them that I would for my own children. I hate to say that out loud, but things get diluted. And at an extreme of this, people dehumanize these people that are farther away from us. So although we are all distant cousins and we care about the survival of the human race, our personal connection to other people gets diluted by geography and tribalism. We've developed different religions and attitudes which can make it challenging to find common ground. In our everyday lives, we gravitate to people who are similar to us and think like us, but so do the other groups. Everyone thinks their way is the right way. We reinforce our beliefs by limiting our exposure to different points of view, and so do the other groups. It becomes more and more difficult to find common ground since we are not even aware of what other people are watching on TV or reading or talking about. I would like for you to do a little mental exercise with me. Imagine you just survived a plane crash in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. You struggle to the surface and swim through gigantic waves to a small raft and drape your arms over the side. Within the raft is a survival kit containing fresh water, food rations, a first aid kit, and maybe some emergency clothing. 3 other people arrive at the little boat, and the 4 of you hang on to the side with your bodies in the water, gasping and looking at each other. In your own mind, please take a few moments to think about what those 4 people are going to do. Does anybody want to share? There you are. You got 4 people hanging on. You got some supplies in there.
Everyone's going to want to get in the raft.
Everyone's going to want to get in on the raft. Make sense, Mary?
I think with so few people, everyone might cooperate to help each other get in the raft.
Get in the raft. And what about the supplies? Share the supplies?
Otherwise, you're going to be fighting and nobody gets in the raft.
Right. So I tried to come up with some ideas, and of course the first one, like most of us in this room, would be divide up the rations so the group lives as long as possible. Could be that one person murders the other 3 so he or she can live longer. One person might think the situation is hopeless, just wants to drink all the water, eat all the food, doesn't want to prolong the suffering, so they take a pair of scissors from the first aid kit and puncture the raft. Told you my mind was going toward the cynical a little bit, didn't it? It's even possible one person pushes away from the raft, drowning, sacrificing themselves so the others can live longer. I was just trying to brainstorm of different things that could happen. But most of us agree we'd like to share. Richard Buckminster Fuller coined the phrase spaceship Earth, which some of you might be familiar with. I imagine the raft as a metaphor for our planet, or spaceship Earth. This is all we've got. Colonizing the moon or Mars, in my opinion, is unrealistic. Yes, perhaps we can create a base on one of these other satellites for a few people. But what about the other 8 billion of us? This is one of the digressions I mentioned before, and I won't go down that rabbit hole this morning, although I think it's very interesting. My point is, we're all on this raft together. If we agree that we want to survive as a species, which is our common ground, then we need to find solutions to continue to sustain life here. Let's take a look at a 3-minute video clip. The transcript is in your order of service because the beginning is spoken in Danish, and you might not be able to read the subtitles.
It's easy to put people in boxes. There's us, and there's them. The high earners, and those just getting by. Those we trust, and those we try to avoid. There's the new Danes, and those who've always been here. The people from the countryside, and those who've never seen a cow. The religious, and the self-confident. There are those we share something with, and those we don't share anything with.
Velkommen. Jeg kommer til at stille jer nogle spørgsmål i dag. Nogle af dem kan godt være lidt personlige, men jeg håber, I vil svare ærligt på dem. Hvem herinde i rummet var klassens klovn? Hvem er bonusforældre?
And then suddenly, there's us. We who believe in life after death. We who've seen UFOs. And all of us who love to dance. We who've been bullied. And we who've bullied others. And then there's us, the lucky ones who've had sex this past week. We who are broken-hearted. We who are madly in love. We who feel lonely. We who are bisexual. And we who acknowledge the courage of others. We who have found the meaning of life. And we who have saved lives. And then there's all of us who just love Denmark. So maybe there's more that brings us together than we think. TV2 Denmark. All that we share.
So this video makes me feel good. At first, some of the people are looking at each other with suspicion, emphasizing the differences. People from the country or the city, the wealthy, the confident. Then later, they're all laughing together because they have explored what they share in common. They all love Denmark. So I feel good about it and feel encouraged. People from different walks of life can find common ground and get along. This reflects one of the Unitarian Universalist tenets, in red there. to affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person. Then my cynical side jumps in and asks, yeah, but does that little experiment change how they will vote in the next election? Are the farmers going to vote for whatever benefits them and the wealthy going to vote for the tax laws that benefit them? Or are all those people now besties and are going to vote for whatever is best for the population in general? Hopefully, everyone is a little bit more aware that the people in the other categories are also nice folk and deserve consideration and compassion. Let's go back to the raft. What about the big person who's prepared to kill the other three in order to survive? Obviously, humans and proto-humans have been conquering, competing for limited resources, and killing each other continuously since the beginning of our evolutionary line. Ever since people figured out they can bash a rock into another creature's head or force a piece of metal into somebody's body, they've been using violence to force their needs and beliefs on other people. If you prefer the biblical version of our creation, then as soon as there were 4 people on earth, one of them murdered another. How can we find common ground with the big oaf who's ready to murder the other 3 people on the raft in order to save him or herself? Can we open a dialogue with this killer? If that guy in the video with the arms as big as cantaloupes was coming after me, I would turn and run. So it's not always easy to talk it out and find a compromise and find common ground. If a lamb and a lion engage in a fight, the lion will win. Likewise, when an aggressive person or country comes up against a pacifist, who will win? Fortunately, we've developed laws and religious commandments that protect the vulnerable and less aggressive from bullies, hopefully. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, etc. But how many wars are fought for religious reasons? That's another digression for another time. Suppose you're the person in the raft who wants to share and help everyone to survive. How can you defend yourself from a murderous attack? With diplomacy? Suggesting we all sit down and talk about it might not work if someone's coming at you with a sharp pair of scissors. People say you can't defeat violence with more violence. I love that sentiment. But if the tanks are rumbling down your street, what are you going to do? Finding a compromise could be very difficult. What about the person on the raft who says it's hopeless anyway and wants to eat all the rations, drink all the water, and puncture the raft? I compare this to those who are polluting our air, destroying our rainforests, and consuming finite resources as though they will last forever. Could these 4 people on the raft figure out a compromise? Multiply that situation by several million and imagine how difficult it is for countries or religious sects to find common ground. How can we find common ground with people who are pushy or fervently committed to their beliefs and won't listen to other points of view? As I warned you, I was going to get a little cynical, so I apologize. Humankind can be disappointing, exasperating, but fortunately also inspiring. We need to be mindful of what another bumper sticker says: humankind, be both. Basically, I feel like I live in a bubble. Here in the Grand Valley, there are certainly improvements we can make so more people have a comfortable standard of living and a better education. But we have it pretty darn good. Sometimes it is difficult for me to understand the reality of what other people are enduring in other parts of the planet. What can we as individuals in our comfy corner of the world do to help the billions of our fellow humans around the globe who don't have drinking water or who have bullets and bombs falling all around them? Is it hopeless that the human race will ever stop hurting each other, and therefore we should just seclude ourselves in our little niche of the planet and do the best we can to enjoy our life? I'll ask those questions again. Is it hopeless that the human race will ever stop hurting each other, and therefore we should just seclude ourselves in our little niche in the planet and do the best we can to enjoy our own life? Sadly, I hate to admit it, but my personal answer to those questions is yes. I doubt that humans will ever stop attacking each other. I realize I'm extremely important to have been born into this life I live while so many people suffer at the hands of others. Although I'm cynical and concerned about many of the things people are doing to each other and our planet, I still want to enjoy the life I have been given, but frequently I feel guilty about it. I feel I feel a terrible irony whenever I walk out of a coffee shop with a $6 coffee in my hand and then drive past a houseless person asking for help on the street corner. But I also have hope. I believe there is something we can do against the powerful forces of evil in the world and help develop the means to find common ground within these colossal conflicts. First of all, we can get educated and vote responsibly. We need to put compassionate and intelligent people in our government. Also, if the troubles of the world are overwhelming, we can try to find common ground on a scale that is manageable with the people we encounter in our everyday lives, as they did in the video. Wave at the person who lets you go first at the intersection. Say thank you to anyone who provides a service to you. Set a bit of money aside for worthy charity. There are many in our valley. As we say here in church, we might be able to contribute time, treasure, or talent. Be open to the possibility that the person who doesn't look like you or live the same lifestyle as you could still be interesting to talk to. Be curious, not judgmental. In this book, called Rough Sleepers, Dr. Jim O'Connell and his crew provide services to the houseless people of Boston. They will never eradicate the homeless situation in that city, but they provide medical care and other services to hundreds of people whose life story led them to a houseless situation. Dr. O'Connell compares their work to the plight of Sisyphus, a man condemned to roll a stone up a mountain, just to have it roll down again, and he must repeat the ordeal over and over forever. When asked about the hopelessness of the situation, Dr. O'Connell replied, "This is what we do while we're waiting for the world to change." Whether or not you believe the world will ever change, we can still find common ground in our own little corner of humanity and spread compassion. I'll remind you of the starfish story. Two people are walking along the seashore after a terrible storm has washed thousands of starfish into a tidal pool where they are dying. One of the people begins picking up starfish one at a time and sets them back in the ocean. The other person laughs at this folly, saying, "Look at all these starfish. You're not making any difference." The first person picks up another starfish and carries it to the surf, then says, "It made a difference for that one." Finally, I'll share a quote from Matthew Perry, who died this year. He played Chandler on the popular TV series Friends. He said, "When I die, as far as my so-called accomplishments go, it would be nice if friends were listed behind the things I did to try and help other people." Thank you.
Our closing music is hymn number 148, Let Freedom Span Both East and West.